Hi, Rich Tehrani in the TMC newsroom here at Interrupt 2009 in Las Vegas. Today we're going to be speaking with Graham Smith, who's with Blade Network Technologies. How are you, Graham?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Great. Can you give us the elevator pitch about your company?
So we are a leading manufacturer of Ethernet networking products for the data center. We primarily OEM our embedded switches to IBM, HP, NEC, and Ferrari's Blade systems. We also have our own line of top-of-rack switches, both 1 gig and 10 gig.
Fantastic. Now, I know you've got some big news at the show, and that's what I wanted to talk with you about. I'm sure the viewers are very anxious to hear. Tell us a little bit about what you're announcing.
We've actually announced a few things at the show here. One of the key ones is a new 10 gigabit switch for the IBM Blade Center. I have one here. It's a 24-port switch, all 10 gigabits, SFP plus uplinks, and some of the more important things about the switch is the first ever embedded switch that supports FCOE. So we have converged enhanced Ethernet support. We can support FCOE traffic. We can do the FIP snooping and all those great things. We can
fiber channel over Ethernet, basically.
Yeah, fiber channel over Ethernet. The switch is also capable of technology we call VM Ready, and that's a technology that can identify a virtual machine running on physical servers and actually configure the network parameters to that virtual machine. Not only do that, but actually track the virtual machine as it migrates across the network. And that's really important to help customers as they are moving to a dynamic data center where they want to be able to move the virtual machines to respond to workload changes, whether it's getting busier and they need to move to new servers, or they're consolidating down just to save energy in quieter times. As they move those virtual machines, our software that runs on our switch has the ability to move the network configurations with the virtual machine. It could be things like quality of service settings, security settings, that if they don't move, you need a network administrator to manually go and configure every time you need to do a migration. So it's got a lot of attention in this show.
So that, so first, the reason for that would be, like you said, there's some applications which require resources on the network, or they need quality of service or something like that. So first you need to make sure that we're accounting for that. But the second thing that you're telling me is basically, rather than having to deal with the manpower of doing the physical changes, you have the automation, which reduces the need to have the human error and also the human management of these changes.
Absolutely. So you configure to the virtual machine once, and it could be a virtual machine that's running, say, web servers, so you need customers to be able to look at your website, place orders, or it could be a virtual machine that's doing database, maybe part of HR, so payrolls, completely different security settings. You need to be able to configure the network parameters accordingly, so you don't want outsiders getting to your payroll, for example. And as those machines now need to migrate across your network to another physical machine, this gives you the ability to have those configurations dynamically in real time follow that virtual machine during a migration.
Now you have other news as well, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, so our products, this is one of the first parts of what we call our cloud-ready architecture, where actually the networking parameters, you can not only move the virtual machine, for example, within a data center, where we have technologies working on that will allow you to move that. Customers can move that machine to another data center, somebody else's cloud, maybe one of their own buildings, a remote site. And I have those same network policies for that virtual machine follow them in that move. There's other technologies we're looking at with fabric consolidation, with our converged Ethernet, converged enhanced Ethernet really helps customers move the storage, their networking, and the clustering onto a single fabric. And that's really important in the cloud-type data center where they're looking at very low cost, lots and lots of servers, and going towards commodity technology, but they need to obviously bring values like the fiber channel broad with lossless abilities and scalability, bringing that onto the Ethernet world.
And so are you seeing tremendous demand now for cloud-based computing?
We're starting to see a lot, I think in the last year or so, you've seen a tremendous amount of hype, and now we're starting to see a lot of customers starting to really deploy. And they're looking at the technologies that are needed to make that deployment successful. And people like Google, Amazon, being very successful. A lot of the technologies they develop themselves. Customers now have technologies from players like us that can really help them do that in their own data centers, whether they're building a private cloud whether they're working with an external service provider to move some applications and servers into the public cloud.
And how big is your company?
We're about 300 people now, growing really quickly, primarily focused on the embedded switches for blade servers. But we introduced our own line of rack switches last year. Those are really starting to take off now. So.
Is there any kind of challenge between the OEM model and when you're introducing your own line and selling?
Not really. The sales model is very different, so there's no real challenges for us selling versus our main customers, the OEM customers. So that's been fairly smooth. It's obviously a very different channel, though, to market. So we're now building our own sales force, building our own distributor channel, rather than relying on the OEMs for all that.
It's exciting, though, right? It's exciting
very
to build
exciting.
all that.
Yeah.
It's an interesting time, too, to do it. I mean, it seems like the ability to attract top talent is easier now than it was, let's say, 2 years ago.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
So it's good to be growing and taking advantage of some of the available workforce, which is good. I'm very happy for the company.